It's really awesome when somebody has done their research. This is what we sound like. We would love to work with you. We love that you represent these bands. They know about our company, but they also are doing their own thing.
If they're coming at us and they go, we sound like ABBA meets Black Sabbath, we'll be like, let's listen to that fucking shit. But do not send downloadable music.
Thank you.
It's got to be streaming.
And get it on disco.
Yeah, that'd be super dope.
That'll put you way ahead. I always notice those ones.
We are looking for one stop. We are looking for the easy, clear stuff. Give us something that you're really committed to. Don't try to do 10 genres just because you think you're going to get more placements. All the bands that crush with sync aren't writing songs to the sad doctor scene. They're just writing great songs and they win.
What's going on? Welcome to the New Music Business. I'm your host, Ari Herstand, author of How to Make It in the New Music Business, the book, 3rd edition, coming very soon. Look out for that. Today, my guests are Lyle Hyson and Kyra Wendell of Bank Robber Music. They are a sync licensing company, and we talk everything sync this episode. Now, Bank Robber, if you're unfamiliar, let me just say this. If you're unfamiliar with Bank Robber Music, you don't work in sync, because pretty much everyone in sync knows Bank Robber Music. They are one of the longest standing, most reputable sync agencies in the space. They've been around for, just about 20 years or so, and they've worked on campaigns, national ad campaigns for every company out there: Gatorade, Reese's, One Bank, BP, you name it. Facebook, they've probably done it. They do TV shows. They play songs in TV shows and movies and on all the major networks. So they have a hand in a lot of what you're watching. You might not know their work, but you've definitely seen it. And if you've ever watched a TV show or a movie, or seen a commercial, or been scrolling Instagram and seen an ad there, Bank Robber has most likely touched something in that. In this episode, we specifically talk about what sync agents do, how they work with the music supervisors, what the briefs are these days, meaning what are the music supervisors asking for right now? What are the fees looking like? How much are ad agencies and TV networks and paying for the placements on these shows, how much they're actually paying for these upfront placements, what the Bank Robber business model is, how they operate, how they get paid, all of that. So if you're interested in sync, this is the episode for you. It's we even get on the topic of Hitler. I don't know how or why, but stick around so you can hear why we talk about that. And Harry Styles gets one too many shout outs in this episode as well. We get on a kick, but it was a lot of fun. I had a really great time chatting with both of them. I think you're really going to dig it. Please follow and subscribe and like the show. However you're listening to this right now, if you could just pause it and hit the subscribe or hit the follow button, that really helps. Leave a 5-star review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. That also really helps. I love reading those reviews. If you're watching on YouTube right now, just leave us a comment after the episode. I'd love to hear your takeaways, and if you have a question, I try to get back to the questions here. And of course, you can follow all of us that make the show happen at Ari's Take on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. You can find me at Ari Herstand on Instagram and Twitter. You can find Bank Robber Music on Instagram and Twitter as well. Keep up with what they're doing. Visit aristake.com. Get on that email list. Most importantly, get on that email list. That's where we send all the most important information out there. All right, let's kick into the show. Lyle Hyson, Kyra Wendell, welcome to the show.
Hiya.
Hello. Where are you both based? Where do you live? Where are you coming to me from?
I am in Los Angeles. I'm in Highland Park.
Beautiful. And Lyle, how about you?
Hoboken, New Jersey, baby.
All right. Okay, we got both coasts.
Yes.
And Kyra, we're neighbors. I'm in Los Feliz. Well, not quite neighbors, but not too far away.
Yeah, not too far at all.
Beautiful. So my audience is pretty familiar with the sync licensing realm. We've had on the show previously, on the music supervisor side, Jen Malone, who, of course, is the music supervisor for Euphoria and Atlanta and Pitch Perfect and Step Up. Lindsay Wolfington, who most initially, I would say most famous for One Tree Hill. She placed one of my songs on One Tree Hill. That's kind of how I got my music started in sync. But you know, she's now a go-to supervisor. We've had Brian Vickers of Disney on the trailer side, Winslow Bright on the ad side. So we've done a lot talking to music supervisors on kind of how they operate, what they're looking for, and all of that. But I'm really excited to talk to both of you because when the supervisors are in need of music and they're looking for something, and or the ad agencies, they oftentimes turn to Bank Robber. And if you could just kind of give us a breakdown of what Bank Robber is, what Bank Robber does, and even more broadly, what a sync licensing agency is and does. Maybe Lyle, if you want to start off.
Okay. I was going to say ladies first, but okay. Age before beauty. Bank Robber. That was a lot of questions in that one thing, but basically, we represent a bunch of independent labels and artists, and we pitch their music to film, TV, commercials, anything that walks and talks, we'll pitch to it. And basically, we spend our days over here just putting songs into folders and sending them out, responding to briefs, or sending out records, general mailings, reaching out to supervisors, see what they're having for lunch, just doing our thing, just get all the music out in front of as many people as possible. And so that's pretty much what we do. That's
Cool.
what syncing to us is anyway.
Kyra, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Lyle pretty much covered everything, but when people sort of like ask me, what do I do? And they don't really know what it is, I just kind of tell them that I make playlists for a living somewhat, and try to get independent artists into TVs and movies and commercials and try to get them to sort of get money that way. And also just paying attention to what's going on with TVs and movies and who's supervising what is a huge part of the job as well.
Cool. You both mentioned a few keywords that I want to touch on and get some explanation on. Lyle, you mentioned make folders, respond to briefs.
Yes.
Can you talk about what you mean by folders and how you do go about making that, what those are, and then what are briefs? Okay,
yeah. See, that's kind of before disco came around. Does everyone know what disco is? That's should I explain that?
I can explain disco. Disco is it's a kind of a streaming service, but it's more private and used for internal use. It's kind of the go-to gold standard in the sync licensing realm for I guess filtering, segmenting, and you can make easy playlists with streamable and downloadable songs, and all the metadata is baked in there with contact information, lyrics, credits, potentially BPM, and other like themes, notes, all of that kind of stuff. Is that about right?
Yeah. I mean, it's where you house your music. It's where you upload all of your music that you represent, and from there we get to pull folders from there. Make folders of whatever the requests are. Before disco was a lot more of a hodgepodge lodge. I had my brother's kid, who was a super nerd at 13, build a one based on Flash that I used for like 10 years, and it slowly burnt to the ground. And so just at the right time, disco came around. So now it's more universal. Kyra is our latest hiring, and I didn't have to explain to her how to use my Fakafta system that I had. She already worked in a company that used disco, so it was that's been a real game changer for us. So, and then basically a lot of the times we are sitting here and we'll get a brief. A brief is just like, hey, we need songs for 2 doctors to cry to in the rain, and we'll be like, well, what kind of doctors are they, and where are they? And what kind of rain is it pouring? So we have to kind of navigate the landscape of what the brief really means, and what the reference, if there are reference tracks, sometimes they're not even reference tracks, sometimes it's not even doctors, it's just rain, so it's just it's kind of, I mean, I've been doing it for a couple of decades. I love it. I mean, it's kind of a gas, it's a real winning feeling when you actually figure out what the supervisors are saying, even though you have no idea what they're really saying. So,
yeah,
and that's kind of the joy. They, a lot of the briefs use a lot of the same reference tracks over the years. A lot of reference tracks don't change, so, I'll still get briefs for things like the Sneaker Pimps, even though that hasn't been a thing in, 15 years. Most of the people watching this probably weren't even born when the Sneaker Pimps were a thing. And were they ever really a thing? So, that's what we do. Pitching and bitching. That's what I like to say.
And Kyra, you mentioned playlists, and I'm assuming that is in disco, but can you kind of expand a little bit on that and how you put playlists together and what your system looks like, and just like pull the curtain back a little bit on what you mean by playlists?
Yeah, playlists and folders are kind of interchangeable when we sort of talk about them.
Okay.
But the playlists that we make are in response to the briefs that we get. And I like to make my playlists I like to title them with sort of like certain tags that music supervisors use a lot, so I can go back through them and know that like this song is great for like bouncy tech ads, or this has a ominous spooky vibe to it. And so there is like this language that supervisors use, and it's something that you have to get attuned to, because we don't get to work to picture that often. And so language is really important, and tagging your music and understanding how this language like defines music is really important in our jobs.
When you say you don't work to picture, meaning they're not sending you if it's a commercial, they're not sending you the minute-long spot and say, put music to this, or they're not sending you the scene of the two doctors crying in the rain of 3 minutes and saying, what song would work for this? They're saying we need something ominous and spooky with female vocals and acoustic guitar or something, right?
Yeah, it's really rare that we get pictures. Sometimes we get it, and that's sort of lucky, and it's its own thing. It kind of changes the job a little bit. So a lot of it is just kind of like deciphering what people mean, and you get better at it as you go along, but it is a different language.
And I saw that you have, and like you mentioned, Lyle, on your roster, you represent a lot of labels, publishing companies, and artists. On your website, you just have kind of the companies that you represent. I couldn't find the individual artists necessarily. Speak to that when it comes to partnering with some of these companies, with record labels and publishing companies, and how you act as their representative in the sync licensing space.
Okay, so with a lot of the labels, just since I'm an old aging hipster doofus, it was a lot of indie rock labels that have been around for a long time, and so when Bank Robber was started, it was just basically people I already knew who had labels, and they would come to us because a lot of the small labels don't have in-house licensing, so they figured they'll have us do it for them, and it'll be cheaper. I won't need health insurance. They'll have 8 people working on it instead of 2 or 1. And, so we are generally exclusive to the label that we will work almost, every release they put out. That gets a little dodgy because releases have increased. I think there's a whole thing now where there's more content because of everyone has ADHD and moves on from product right away. So some of our labels are just vomiting releases, and sometimes we can't really even keep up. And but mainly we do try to at least, if we don't send out every record a label puts out, we'll at least pitch some of the songs from it, because sometimes their quality control is per label varies. Sometimes the Labels will want to put out songs that sound like vacuum cleaners throwing up, and have very high expectations in licensing for that. And we'll have to explain to them that that's a very niche market. Vacuum cleaner. It's also very offensive to the vacuum cleaners that have eating disorders. So we have to not offend anybody. So, but basically at this point, so we have a lot of good indie rock. Over the years, we've expanded. We do a lot of catalogs, labels, like Delmark or
Delmark, the blues and jazz label.
Yes, blues and jazz label. Yes, fantastic. And we work with a couple of new, there's this label called Reminder that does a lot of new wave from 79 and 80. And
so you have Barsuk,
Barsuk, yeah.
Death Cab for Cutie. We had Jordan Curlin, Death Cab's manager, on the show as well. Cool. That's great. Yes. Yeah.
So Barsuk's one of my OG bank robber labels. It's one of the out of the gate. So and then there should be on the website. I haven't really looked. There should be just a disc that says other artists, which is just artists that we pick up, and that's more of where we try to go into the world of filling the void for briefs that we don't have. Which is kind of how we met. It's like the licensing landscape has changed enough that it's a lot of electronic pop and female driven pop and melodic pop, and we don't have a lot of snap crackle or pop. So we try to pick up on that as much as possible to fill that void, because we're getting a lot of those briefs. It's frustrating if it was great when everybody wanted stuff that sounded like Death Cab for Cutie and Not a Surf, because that's what we had. But so now everybody wants, I don't know.
Sophie
I don't
Tucker.
want to say.
Right.
Sure. Yes. Yes. And that is an excellent example, and that goes on and on and on. So we try to that's how we pick up other artists individually.
Gotcha. And when it comes to, because you represent some labels and you also on the other side represent some publishing companies, can you explain how you go about clearing the songs either before you're pitching the supervisors or if they come to you for one of the songs? Because just to break it down, I mean, labels have one set of rights, which is for the master rights on a recording, but you also need to clear the publishing rights on that track to be placed in sync licensing. Do you try to clear all the rights so you're a one-stop, meaning that the supervisor can just come to you and not have to go to all different stops around town for publishing and all the multiple songwriters that might be on it and the master rights from the label? Are you acting as a one-stop, or do you only represent the rights and clear the rights for the companies that you're partnering with?
We have both. And we just kind of know, we kind of tag everything on Disco, if it's one stop or easy and what the pub info is. And actually, if you are a musician and you do want to get your stuff synced or somebody representing it, it's really good to have all of that information ready to go. You'd be surprised by how many people just don't. And then we have a clearing team that helps clear it. So if there is a bunch of people that they have to reach out to clear it for pub, they'll do that. We mostly handle creative. But there are certain times where a supervisor will be like, we just want one stops and easy clears. And so it is essentially easier, I would say, to play songs that are one stop and easy, but we don't only operate as one stop.
Got it. And when it comes to the pitching process, and when you do get these briefs from music supervisors or ad agencies and they say we want songs that are ominous and spooky, or the songs that kind of to replace a Sophie Tucker song, something that sounds like that, do you pitch playlists? Do you send them your entire ominous and spooky playlist, or do you pitch individual songs in most of your pitches?
We create new playlists for every brief that we get. So everything is tailored specifically to that brief. But we will look back on other briefs and also pull from there. So it's we're constantly cataloging the music that we get and then making new playlists from that cataloging. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it brings us joy if it's a brief that's a lot like one we just got. So then we can just pull from the one we just did. But, we're always getting new records and stuff. So every few weeks we got to update them anyway. So, we don't, a lot of the catalog stuff that doesn't change, like I'm in charge of the 90s pitches in the early 2000s and the 80s or whatever. It's not like we're getting a ton of new stuff in that. So that kind of recycles its way without changing much. But we work with Omnivore Records, and they keep on getting us a bunch of new stuff from the 70s and 80s. So that doesn't even really hold. So, but the joy is if we can just crush a few in a row because we just did them for somebody else.
Yeah. When you do start working with new artists you're excited about, or new partners, new labels or publishing companies, and they have new releases, and they want to prioritize, or you want to prioritize them, or you kind of want to put this artist forward, or a song you're really excited about, is there an opportunity to do that? Is there a way that you're able to put these new exciting new songs or new artists on supervisors' radars, or does it not really work that way and you're more reactive than proactive?
We send out mailers a lot of the time if it's an album that we're really excited about, or if it's something that we're really excited about and we know like a supervisor in particular works with hip hop and it's like a hip hop album, we'll just send them an email and be like, you should really check this out. It could be great for XYZ. So it's a little bit of both, but we do try to get supervisors in on the things that like are high priorities and stuff that we've recently signed that we really love. So it's not just playlisting. We don't just wait for briefs to come to us. We're also like being proactive, like you said.
Yeah, we were really excited. We got a new Mogwai song the other day, and we were just like, hey, let's send it out. And we sent it out with a contest. Anyone who draws a picture of Mogwai or sends us a brief gets a free copy of the album. And,
Nice.
We got a couple of both. So that was kind of,
it worked.
it worked,
That's fun.
And it keeps, and that's for our own sanity.
Yeah.
Because, getting supervisors to draw pictures of themselves on stage jamming with Mogwai. It was kind of fun. So, it keeps us entertained. Because, the whole thing with pitching and, what we do, it's not that serious. It's people get really stressed out and people get really freaked out about it, but no one's going to die if we don't get them their brief. And,
sure.
And bands should never, ever base their whole career on licensing. It is still very much it happens, because your song is good. And if it doesn't happen and isn't because your song isn't good, it just isn't really working for licensing. And that's a hard message to get across to bands without hurting their feelings, or let alone grumpy managers or things like that. But, so yeah, drawing contest. I recommend it. I think we'll probably do it again.
I love that. That's so creative, and it breaks up the day for sure. Now, it's not life or death, but there's a lot of money on the line. And can you speak to that? Because I don't think a lot of people really understand what some of these upfront sync fees look like. Can you just talk about what you're seeing these days when it comes to, TV shows versus trailers for either TV trailers or movie trailers versus commercials?
Yeah. Lyle, do you want to do
it? Nah. No, just make me sad.
I mean, honestly, it is kind of sad. And it is something that we have sort of watched change, I think, in like the past 3 years. TV and movies just aren't giving or aren't offering that much money as they used to, which is, something that's a bummer to explain to artists that are maybe more of an indie sound, because they aren't going to be synced for ads that often. Ad budgets are still pretty great, but because so much of ad stuff now is like on social media, a lot of budgets will kind of try to make make it seem like it's like, well, it's not going to be on national television, so it should be like cut in half. And so budgets have kind of plummeted in like the past year.
Can you give me a ballpark range of what you're talking about, just to give some perspective and reference what you mean by it used to be great, they plummeted? What are the numbers, the ranges we're talking about here?
I feel like a really good example of this would be like, I remember when I first started in Sync, which was about like 3 years ago, a good, like a standard TV placement would probably be around like 10K. And now a standard TV placement is like around 5K.
And we're talking all in, that's both sides.
Yeah. And that's like all in. And so now when it is 10K, we're like, wow, they have a great budget, you know? So it's definitely changed.
Okay.
So like Lyle said, being a musician, I know that a lot of musicians are really like eager and they're like, oh, I can make the money through Sync. It's not what it used to be. And I also think that is because there's so much more content out there too.
Yeah.
And so many artists are like, I feel like there's just more music as well, because so many people have access to Spotify or have like at home studios. So it's kind of like, if you're not going to want to do it for 5K, we'll find someone who will, which is sort of like a bleak thing, but it's kind of the reality.
And to make things even worse, if you can believe it can get even worse, a lot of the majors are just letting soups have music for free because they just want the publicity. You know, they just want because it drives your numbers, right? If you get a good placement, it can maybe make your Spotify numbers look better. So you got to understand, not to pull grandpa on here, but when Bank Robber started, we were getting 15K aside for a major network show, and we would get, 5 songs 10 songs in a season, because the seasons were like 23 episodes. So, there were some shows that we were just crushing it with, and, buying so many helicopters, it was just, it was, and it was just very natural, it's just like, oh, this is sick. And at the time, major labels weren't playing that game at all.
Right.
They weren't even lowering their fees, or major publishers. So we were kind of coming in, even if we were getting 30K all in, we were still lower than the majors. And so the supervisors, many of which I'm still friends with, who were fans of independent music, were like, oh yeah, this is great. Let's book these bands and get these bands some hits. And at the same time, when I would go out to LA and do meetings, some of the studios were like, we've never had anyone from an independent label show up before. So, it was very exciting times because, it was new to a lot of the soups. Yeah. And also new to the bands. Sure. So the bands weren't like counting on this stuff to happen.
Right.
But, then eventually the labels got hip. Major labels got hip to it. They started bringing their fees down. They started doing pre-cleared compilations. Like 10 years ago, they would send out CDs still of pre-cleared songs that they can use for any fees. And, we can't beat that. We're, our labels are babies, and we are a commission-based company. It's all... That's not how it goes, So, that's not how the game is played. They kind of cheat. So, so major labels still suck.
That's not in question. They've always sucked. They still suck. But this is actually very surprising. This is the first time I'm hearing that major labels are giving their songs away for Sync for free. Is
not
that...
all of them. It's a.
Okay.
I'm not saying
once in a while.
I have friends and once, I'm saying that if they have a priority artist, what I've heard is like they'll be sending it out, being like, okay, please use this for free. Gotcha. You can have this for free. It's not an across the board thing. They're not doing that to all their bands, but if they got something they want to hit.
Yeah, I'm assuming still the top tier A-list artists they're not giving Beyonce songs being able to.
Oh no, I'm saying to break the baby band. Okay, sorry,
the baby bands.
And we're in baby band land, right? We work with small bands, so they kind of like crowded our field and said, they've got baby bands. Well, our baby bands are for free. Yeah. So no, they're not giving Dojo Cat for free. Sure. Sorry, I wasn't clear about that.
No, that makes sense. And then I'm assuming it works. Well, maybe not. MFN, most favored nations, was such a big thing before, where when we talk about, you said like 15K aside, and just for people that don't know what that means, it's like there's the publishing side, which you have to clear with the publishers of who represent the songwriters of the song, and then there's the record label side, or whoever represents the master rights, and so that's usually when we say aside, that's there's a certain amount of money that's given paid for the license fee for the publishing side, and there's a certain amount of money that's for the licensing fee on the master side. Typically, it's the same, but not always. And the MFN clause, most favored nation clause, usually when it comes to majors, they're like, I'll do it for whatever the other side negotiates. If they negotiate higher, we'll match that side, but I don't want to be anything lower. But are you seeing where the publishers might say, we can't go lower than 20 grand, 20K for this, but the baby band label is like, you know what? We're just giving it away because we want this band to get some more streams on Spotify.
Yeah, that happens. That definitely does happen.
Okay.
It really depends on the publisher. Like if there are major publishers attached, they will put their foot down. And then most of the time, it's not even the exposure that the labels want. It's just the artist, like the artist needs money, you know? And so it's usually the label being like, we just need to get this guy some money.
Sure.
Because especially after the pandemic, nobody was touring, and I think people were a little eager to make a buck.
I mean, we always, if we're working with a major publisher on an artist, we will always try to hold to MFN, and of course, but the MFN's all songs in the movie or all songs in the TV show, that's all gone very much away. You know, that's definitely not a thing anymore. So. But, I mean, sometimes we'll be like, all right, this is a garbage fee. What is everyone else getting? Is everyone getting garbage? That kind of thing. And they'll be like, well, except for, the Who, everyone's getting garbage. And it's like, okay, fine. Whatever. Who is it? Maybe is it, is it bad? Maybe it's from a bad record. Maybe they shouldn't get better money for face dances. But, it's just, so it just, that's just how the climate is, though. But yeah, if we're working, we try not to work with that many artists that have major publishers because they can slow down the process.
Sure.
Part of the insanity of the past few years is that everybody wants songs right away. Everybody wants things cleared right away. We had a crazy one on Saturday this week. I mean, it's just like, if it was bad before the pandemic, now that since everyone knows that you're home and no one goes to offices all the time, people are just killing you. Like right before the meeting started, someone's like, I need something tonight. And I was like, I'm doing this damn thing until 7 and I want to eat dinner and I'm not, I want to watch the basketball game. I don't want to miss but that's that's a complaint, but not really. I mean, I'm glad to have the work. And I'll gladly do it. It just seems that people have kind of, thrown all the rules out the window.
What about on the commercial side? Kyra, you mentioned that commercial fees are still competitive.
I would say so, yeah. Like I mentioned before, it does get a little low when people are kind of like just trying to have it on Instagram or like exist on like TikTok. They sort of, they like think that it should be less because it's a social platform, but that's sort of like all we see now, nobody has cable TV anymore. So it is, it does reach just as wide of an audience. So I feel like the budgets should correlate, but they sometimes don't.
And what are we talking in terms of the ranges here?
I feel like ads are sort of all over the place, but right now I would say a good budget for an ad is still like 100K plus. Okay. And then we've been seeing as low as like, I don't know, like 5K for like an Instagram ad, which is it's just not fair to the artist,
Yeah. It is really insane that they're like, well, this is a new platform and therefore it is not being, I guess their reasoning is it's not seen as much, but I think people are seeing Instagram ads more than they're seeing because you're forwarding through the TV ads, but when that ad comes on for Spanx for me all the time, I can't get it off this damn screen.
What are you searching, Lyle?
I don't know. I'm like, stop it. like, get rid of your dad bod. I'm like, I know, enough already. It's like constantly in my feed. So whoever put the song in the dad bod jam should get a lot of guilt for that thing. It's constant. But they're not seeing it that way. We just got hit with a couple today, honestly, of just Instagram only, and we're going to pay you, 3 cents. And we're like, wow, this is getting more views than a lot of the shows, I think, that are being seen on some of the obscure networks. There's so many networks now, right? Yeah. People aren't watching all these damn shows, right? And I don't know.
Well, I mean, do you have any recourse other than withholding the songs? Because like you said, there's so much music out there. There are now, I'm sure, Lyle, you'll be the first to say, even the sync agency space has started to become flooded. I mean, there's so many more sync licensing standalone companies now than there were probably when you started 15, 20 years ago. I mean, what is your recourse? What are you able to do to kind of try to inch these rates up, or is that just the reality and the nature of the beast?
Drinking helps. Yeah, I mean, it's really look, I mean, Bank Robber, we don't have a lot of hits. We don't have recognizable, we don't have big bands. We have M83, they put out an album 8 years ago, and we were banging for that. We were getting all the big fees, we were getting all the money, and things were great, but that's one release out of 9 gajillion that we have. So we don't really have a lot of legs to stand on. We were like, we have the best bands, we have the best music. But, I think a lot of these companies that are, have, recognizable hits, like if you're pitching Dojo Cat now, you're winning all the placements, and you can charge whatever you want, but, we're just not in that sphere, and so what it became a volume game for us. We're just like, oh, fuck, we just have we got to get, 3 placements for every one that we used to get. And now there's more content. So it doesn't really work. It didn't really add up. But all we can do is just make it a bulk game for us. Like, we're going to do all the pitches. We're going to try to get all the placements we can, and, diversify the lineup. But, I mean, the big band, Harry Styles, you need some placement help. Come on over, dude.
Right.
It's just,
sure.
Well,
Taylor, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you have all of the connections. I mean, you've been doing this long enough where I'm assuming, all of the music supervisors in the space, everyone that I've spoken to, Bank Robber is always at the top of their list. I mean, you're reputable and known in the space. Like, Bank Robber is one of these sync agencies that is respected across the board and is known, which kind of brings me to my next question is, and when artists are thinking about, well, should they go about pitching themselves to music supervisors, what would you tell them as to why they should work with a sync agency or pitch themselves? What's your advice?
They won't. The thing is, the soups get too many emails. They're not going to open their email, So that's the, if you want to pitch yourself, knock your socks off. But Harry Styles. But I mean, it's like, it's just not gonna get opened,
Right.
And so, look, I get it. I mean, bands don't want to, the bands aren't making a lot of money. They don't want to give any of the money up. The labels don't want to give any of the money up since the money's dropped so much. I mean, we spin around and around with these conversations, but if you want your songs to be heard by the supervisors, you gotta pay somebody to do it, and even if you're, a big label, you gotta have at least somebody, repping your shit. And if you're a big band and you're like, all of a sudden, like, oh my God, now we're putting out our own stuff through CD Baby, you're still you need somebody to do the work.
Yeah.
The bands don't know how to do this stuff.
And when you mentioned you have to pay somebody to do that, can you just break down the business model? We haven't covered this yet. Break down the business model of sync agents and how they operate.
Well, I think they're all different. right, Kyra? I mean, they all
Yeah.
kind of do a different thing.
Well, how does-
Everything, yeah, everyone has different contracts and
Okay.
but basically, I guess so we represent a whole catalog of artists, and we'll take like a percentage of the fee.
The upfront sync fee.
Yeah, of the upfront sync fee. Yeah, but majority of it goes to the artist and the label.
Do you have a range, or is it a standard contract? What are we talking when you say you take a percentage of commission?
We try to do generally 25%.
Okay, that's great.
So and that's what I would say to anyone watching. If you got anyone who's coming at you and they want to take 50% or any of that garbage, tell them to sod off. That's criminal. And also, I think there's some agencies that, some pitch companies that go on retainer, that kind of thing.
I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, I know. I can't figure out how to make that work. Or, so there are a few different ways the model works. Some companies we're exclusive because we don't like to pitch against other companies that are pitching the same record, and then you have to fight with the band over who gets paid. A lot of artists don't understand that. They feel like the more pitching agents they have, the better. I don't understand that. That's not how you do radio. That's not how you do publicity. You're not hiring multiple people in those fields. So why would you do that in this one?
Well, just to break that down a little bit. Yeah, no, and that's a really important point as to the exclusive, non-exclusive conversation we have a lot, and artists are very confused by that. But just to clarify what you're saying with that is, if, let's say, Jen Malone, who is his music supervisor, and she's working, let's say, the next season of Euphoria, and Bank Robber comes to her and says, "Hey, I got the new Harry Styles. Here it is. This is the new song." She's like, "Oh, this is great." Meanwhile, Universal also comes to her and is like, "Hey, we got the new Harry Styles." And she's like, "Wait a minute, I was just pitched this by Bank Robber. Who am I supposed to clear the rights with? Who do I clear this?" And then you're both waving your hands like, no, we have the rights. She's like, "Okay, this feels like a lawsuit waiting to happen. If I make a mistake here, I'm going to lose my job, because me as a music supervisor, my job is dependent on I'm going to clear the rights appropriately and accurately." And so is that kind of in line with what you're saying?
Yeah.
It isn't that she is going to lose her job. It's just that we're not going to get paid. Like, the song will clear. You know what I mean? Like, say we're working. Okay, so say we have the new. We're just going to stick with Harry Styles and say he's hired Bank Robber. He's hired Kitchen Sink. He's hired In Your Sink. He's hired all the sink companies.
Yep.
Sinkapalooza, and we all sent them to Jen Malone. And Jen's like, "Oh my God, 4 copies of the new Harry Styles? I mean, who do I send the request to?" And she's going to go, "Okay, I'm going to send it to this guy, Sinkapalooza, but I'll hear that Sinkapalooza got the license." And the thing is, I can't get mad at Jen, that she's just doing her gig and she just needs the song cleared. But I got to get paid. So I have to talk to Sinkapalooza and go like, "Dude, what the heck?
Yeah,
I was on this too, and I sent it to her as well. Why are you getting the bread?" And sometimes you even have to go back to the supervisors, and supervisors do not want to be involved in that, because she might be best friends with Sinkapalooza, and she doesn't want to bum him out either, because somebody's going to lose. So I don't want to get in the middle of that mess at all. So if you're coming at me, Harry, and you want us to represent your record, it's going to be, you're going to be exclusive. So, yeah.
That makes sense. So can you explain, and I don't know how much experience you have with music libraries, but can you explain the difference between libraries and exclusive, like I would say non-exclusive libraries and exclusive sync agencies like Bank Robber?
You got that one, Kyra?
Yeah, I don't have a ton of experience with libraries, but I do know what they are. And I would just say that I feel like libraries are a little bit more made for sync, or not as like, how do I say this? They're just not like, they're not created by people who are making music and then deciding that they want it to possibly be in film or TV or commercials. It's just kind of like this like massive database that exists solely for people to use to sync.
And it's not
If that
the,
makes any sense.
yeah, it's not your top tier. You're a jingle punk. You're writing songs for placement, and you're going to get paid a flat fee by the jingle punk. I don't know if they're still a thing, honestly. So, but I was saying like those people are on hire. Those are hired composers and stuff. Like we have a library that we've put together, and it's basically just jams of songs by the bands that they don't want anymore, or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of bottom feeder in that regard financially. Like you don't want your songs in that library.
Yeah.
I mean, you do, if you'll get some scratch, but it's pre-cleared. It's, you got, so if Hitler wants to use your song, you can't say no. It's like a pre-clear library for whatever uses Hitler wants. So, that's on you, dude.
Go ahead, Kyra.
It's kind of like the difference between like stock photos and like photography.
That's a good.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right, thank you.
Cool. No, that's a really great visual. Right. It's like, do you want the guy that just goes like this and is smiling that you see 28 times, across in every advertisement? Or do you want like the dope photo of Harry I don't know why we keep going back to Harry at Madison Square Garden, up close, sweating on the front row? That's going to be a totally different use fee than this guy that is being used across the board in every advertisement out there. That's a good analogy. That makes sense. Now, going back to Hitler, because why not? More opportunities to talk about Hitler, the better. Frankly, yeah. So, no, but that makes me that brings me to a question of, do you always ask your artists but before you clear one of their songs in a placement, if they approve of it, or do they have to pre-clear everything with you and say, we trust your judgment, even if it's going to, a controversial company or figure or something that's against their beliefs?
Oh no, everything runs by the band. We don't have approval rights.
Yeah.
So they have to, if they, now look, if they want their song, like, okay, so say we get the request for Hitler, and we'll go, hey guys, hey Harry, Hitler wants to use your jam in one of his spots. We're not too psyched on this, but what do you think? Harry might go, I'm really broke. I need to do the Hitler commercial, so I'm gonna say yes. And we'll, there's been times, like we had a song like BP. They just, it was a few years ago, but they're trash, and they polluted. they spilled all this oil in the ocean, and they wanted to do a rebranding, and they used one of our songs, and we were like, oh my god. But the artist was like, oh my god, I'm so broke. So and it's gotten a lot better. Sure. I think initially, like 15 years ago, bands were getting crapped on for doing ads and stuff. But, I think people understand it more now. There's definitely not, if the bad guys on the Supreme Court want to license a Harry song, to promote themselves as being dope, that could be problematic,
Right.
But, most of the bands, there's a very few companies, McDonald's, that kind of things that people are like, do I want to do that?
Yeah.
So
no, that makes sense. Okay. Well, that's Good to know. In terms of the artists who are listening right now, and let's say they want to work with Bank Robber, what is your recommendation for artists? Or let's say it's, do you take on new artists very often? Do you take on direct, unsolicited submissions? And if so, how do you recommend people submit to you to represent them?
Yeah, we do. I really enjoy that we do listen to the demos that come through to us. I feel like a lot of companies don't, or they just kind of like ignore it. And we honestly listen to a lot of them, regardless of how bad or how good they are. Nice. And I feel like, it's really important to kind of like tailor the email or the way that you're reaching out to this company to the company. Like if somebody emails info@Bank Robber, I don't know if we're gonna see it, but if somebody like
we do, but yeah,
and we do listen to them. But if somebody like emails me specifically and like figures out my email, I'll probably pay a little more attention to that that artist and give them a little bit more of a listen. But I think that cold emailing is pretty successful. Like if we will listen to it. So
I mean, it depends, like we'll look at it and go, oh, look, I'm not even going to say Harry Styles. But we'll just say like, oh, look, this might be something we need. I mean, we do, especially to the info address, we get a ton of emails. And, I think AJ or Johnny, one of the cats vets them, and then we have a 4-person creative team and we vote, because you shouldn't have the 57-year-old white guy deciding what the music should be that we're working with anymore. I mean, I would only sign bands that sound like Cheap Trick and The Clash, and that's definitely not what we need right now. I mean, and I think, if it's like female electro pop, I'll be like, I don't know, it sounds okay to me, a trap hop or whatever robot rock that I don't understand that well. It's just like, somebody tell me, I mean, I know through the briefs what we need. Yeah. And that's the thing, like if people are looking at if you're like a 50-year-old white guy that plays rock and you look at our website and you think you're better than any of the bands that we work in that genre, okay, bring it on. But I think there's a lot to be said for people. Like other companies need that. Like look at the other companies. They need that. They need rock. They need that stuff. It's like, we don't need it that much. So, and so I like when somebody's like, hey, we're from, Mars and we sing in Swahili and, it's like, oh shit, we need that Mars rap music really bad. So they've actually done some work to see what our company might need. So,
well, that was my next question. What is the perfect email pitch, and what do you like to see in a cold reach out email, and what would be the ideal pitch from an artist?
I feel like so many times when I get pitches through emails, a lot of people are like, we sound exactly like these bands that you guys have, and we'd be great on your roster too. And it's like, okay, well, we already have these bands. Like Lyle was saying, it's really awesome when somebody just kind of has done their research and is like, this is what we sound like. Nobody ever really says like, we could fill in the gaps, but they're like, this is what we sound like. We would love to work with you. We love that you represent these bands. So it's like, okay, they know about our company, but they also are doing their own thing.
Yeah. Like, and basic rock, if you like. I mean, we don't use those terms, but if they're coming at us and they go, we sound like ABBA meets Black Sabbath, we'll be like, let's listen to that fucking shit. Yeah.
Cool.
And if they put a dog picture with it, great. But do not send downloadable music.
Thank you.
It's got to be streaming. My fucking computer cannot take it. It's just like, just streaming link, do your homework, fucking figure out how to send the song streaming.
Yeah.
And get it on disco. I feel like
get it on disco. That'd be super
that'll
dope.
Put you way ahead. Yeah. I always notice those ones.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're like, I write the songs, or I wrote all these songs with my cousin and he's signed to Sony, you should say that up front. Like we are looking for one stop, that we are looking for the easy, clear stuff, so that's very important when they come at us like, oh yeah, my stuff's easy, clear, and look, if you're just doing shit on your computer and you're not doing gigs and you just think you're blowing up and you have like 4 followers on Spotify, maybe don't send it yet. Like a lot of our time, our job is breaking the bands that our labels have signed. You know what I mean? Like no one knows a lot of these bands. And if you're not even really band rock, like if you're just hobby rock, we're not hobby rock. This is our full-time gig. Give us something that you're really committed to, that you really, don't try to do 10 genres just because you think you're going to get more placements. Just do what all the bands that crush with sync aren't writing songs to the sad doctor scene. They're just writing great songs and they win, and it's like, do not think about that stuff. It drives us absolutely nuts. We are happy to lead artists that we work with. What do we need? We need fucking holiday Christmas songs. Come on, people. Bring us your Hanukkah songs and Christmas songs, because every year starting in May, people want new Christmas songs.
Okay.
And all our bands are like, oh my God, no more. I can't do another Christmas song. So find your public domain jams and do some. But yeah. So anyway, but with the bands that are sending us their shit, believe in your, if you're a real band and you're crushing it, yeah, great. But if you're your dad and you're just like, oh, I think this song will work really great, it's like, dude, come on. Alan, do not fucking follow up. We really do. If we're not writing you, it means like no news is bad news or whatever. It's like come the fuck on, dude. 3 emails. I got it. I got your demo. You know what? I don't like it. I don't want to write that.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's very helpful.
It makes me feel bad.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, I just crushed this guy's dream. Of being in the Hitler documentary. What the fuck is this guy gonna do? How's he gonna get through? So,
amazing. This has been so helpful. Thank you both so much. I have one final question that I ask everyone who comes on the show. Kyra, I'll start with you. What does it mean to you to make it in the new music business?
I think that it mostly means you should probably like keep up with everything changing so rapidly and so quickly, but have integrity with the music that you make. Continue to make music because you like it, not because you want it to be synced. And that doesn't always necessarily mean that things will happen for you, but it's way more rewarding to make music that you believe in than something soulless just to make $1. And make the industry work for you in ways that you want it to.
Awesome. Wow.
Fuck, that was good. No. Damn. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a musician first, right? So it drives me a little nuts seeing like what is going on with the level of making it, as you said. It's like, I guess everyone has their own bars, but comparing yourself to what everyone else is doing, especially now, is just insanity. So if you're in a band or you're writing jams, kind of like Kyra said, and kind of how I still manage to play music, is you just got to still enjoy it. Then you're really making it. Like if it becomes a chore and you're hating it, and you're on, and it's hard. I mean, it's tough. It's really tough booking your own gigs and, schlepping around the shows and stuff, but you still have to find the joy in that stuff. Like, I mean, I love playing gigs, so I'm happy to play them all the time. I'll play in front of nobody and lose money, but it's not a lot of people are like that. A lot of people are like, oh, I need $1 zillion guarantee, or I need to get signed to a label. I mean, that is just garbage. Just put out, make a fucking awesome album. At least if nobody finds it, at least you made best fucking record you've made.
Yeah.
Not some piece, like, I
Yeah.
half-assed my way through some garbage so I can try to get some placements and maybe a few followers on Instagram because I'm I'm in the middle of trying to meet somebody. It's like, that's not the gig. You're playing because you love it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and hopefully, and if you can't make it, hopefully you can get a job that you love. And that was the uptick for me. It's like I didn't make it as a musician, but hey, I get to sit around and put songs in folders all day. Kind of sick, So that's having the backup of like because that you're gonna make a living, especially now, off being a band. Oy vey.
Hey, babe.
I don't even know. It's rough. It is so rough right now.
Yeah.
So, especially now with no touring and no gigs and no merch being sold and the whole thing. It's it's a nightmare. But yeah, play the music, be psyched about it. Then you made it.
Lyle Hyson, Cara Wendell, thank you so much. Bank Robber. Awesome. Thank you guys.
Thank you very much, dude, man.
Thanks, Ari.
Today's episode was edited by Maxton Hunter, theme music by Grassroots District, and produced by all the great people at Ari's Take.